don't think so.
We are live.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming in today. We have a really great treat. Today we have Jim and Michelle Rhodes. They're going to talk to you about how to structure your business plan to make you more money.
Let's hope.
Yep.
That's the idea.
Thank you.
Give me one quick second and let me make sure that we are good on Facebook.
Sure. We're doing a quick test. While she's doing that, I'll explain that I'm holding a microphone, but you don't hear me through the speaker because the microphone is really just to talk to our live broadcast audience. We're actually broadcasting this session live through YouTube, LinkedIn, and a couple of Facebook groups that are specific to Buy Here, Pay Here. So with this microphone, they can hear me. You guys, I'm gonna have to speak up a little bit so you can hear me in the back. But we're here to talk about Buy Here, Pay Here business plan. So if that's what you came to hear, you're in the right room. So you're welcome to stick around, and we'll get around to introducing everybody. I got the thumbs up. We're good on our audio. We just did a live event from Pennsylvania, and we started out, and people were saying, "You got no audio. We can't hear you. We can see you. We can't hear you." So we had to figure that out. It sounds like we're good today. So I'm Jim Rhodes. I'm the founder of the Octane Group. My wife and business partner Michelle is joining, and we're involved in lots of different things specific to Buy Here, Pay Here. I've been doing consulting for Buy Here, Pay Here now for more than 20 years. It's taken me to more than half of the U.S. states calling on Buy Here, Pay Here dealerships and finance companies. So we work a lot too with startups. We talk to dealers who are brand new, looking to get in the business. And so I've done launch packages with dealers and help folks get in the business all over the country. And today we're going to talk about and share some of those things. On the screen there, Michelle's got some of the information about what we do. We also do, and I jokingly say more recently, I'm known as the co-host with Michelle of the Buy Here, Pay Here morning show. We do a live podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, 9 Eastern. And so that's specific to Buy Here, Pay Here. We've been doing that since May. And so several of the people here have told me, Jim, we just tune in to hear Michelle. I mean, it's good that you're there.
A lot,
yeah, but yeah, that's kind of been the consensus. But we also do that. And then we have our education track, which is BHPH Institute. So we try to make sure everybody's aware. We've been putting a lot of material in there for online education. So it's a great foundational place to start in Buy Here, Pay Here, just to get some of the basics, some of the information, and just little short videos, 5 to 10 minute videos, and lots of them.
And the best one on that, especially if you're new, would be the dealer track.
Right.
And the dealer track right now is only $9. So
right. That's right.
Jim introduced himself a little bit, and I just wanted to, I married into Buy Here, Pay Here, and come from corporate America, IT, and smart home space. And so a few years ago, we were working with a coach, and Jim was talking about how he wanted to be able to grow different parts of what we're doing. And I was like, well, it's time for me to quit and join Jim. And so we've been working together doing this for about 2 years now.
Yep.
So,
zigzagging the country, and glad to be here with you in Arizona today.
Absolutely. All right. So, business planning is, those of you guys who listen to us know that we talk a lot about straight lines and squiggly lines. Straight lines are all of the things that are the numbers parts. This is how you do a policy. This is how you write your procedures. Those are all of the straight lines. And there's a lot of people out there that do really, really great at training on straight lines. Jim and I have worked very hard to create a foundation of squiggly lines of the things that we teach. And these are more of the pieces that are not measurable as much. It's how do you feel? What do you think? How do you want to be known? All of these kind of things, instead of this should be your ACV, this should be your whatever, is we think more in that type of realm. And so when we were asked to do this on business planning, we went, let's do something a little whatever you're going to take to SBA, whatever, that's the kind of thing that you're thinking about for a business plan. We're going to talk to you about something that is a lot more foundational to before you actually start creating all of those straight line pieces, all of the numbers pieces. And so we asked ourselves the question, all right, if you're going to create a business plan, where should you start? And we realized that the best place to start for a business plan is to ask yourself, how do you want to exit?
Seems strange to be talking about exit. You're just getting in the business. Why would I be talking about the exit when you're just getting going? And we recognize that while it can be challenging, there's a lot of things to be determined. But when you think ahead to, we're going to introduce you to some of the things to consider when you're mapping out an exit, when you're contemplating an exit. And so we'll talk about that in some depth, but we just know that in order for you to make a decision about how you want to start, it's helpful to kind of know how you want to finish, right?
All righty. So our friend, how many of you guys are familiar
Anybody
with
know Mark
Burkholder?
Burkholder? Anybody in the room know Mark?
Okay.
Alabama, Peachtree Planning. There's
All
one in the
right.
back.
Mark is very well known for exit planning, succession planning. And we had the opportunity to do a podcast with him a little while back, and just really, he's a fun guy. He's a very, very smart if you're looking to create an actual succession plan. But one of the things that he said that we were like, it's true. It's very, very true. And he said that usually a buy here, pay here dealer gets out of the business one of three ways.
Me?
You.
They get out of business one of three ways. If you're a buy here, pay here dealer, you're going to leave the business one of three ways. He says you're either going to sell your business to an insider, somebody on your team, family. You're going to sell your business to an outsider, or you're going to die at your desk.
All right.
Those are your three scenarios.
Die at your desk.
So
anybody? Oh, yeah.
We got one.
How many of us feel like we are going to die at
Yeah.
our desks, but that's
So-
not necessarily how we want to exit,
Yeah.
right?
And we recognize it. We enjoy our work and we expect to work a long time, and we're okay with retiring in our business, perhaps. But we also recognize, if we think about those two other scenarios, if you really were looking to exit and maybe enjoy some other way of life, invest in some other businesses that we can think about, let's look at what does it look like if we want to sell to an insider or sell to an outsider. So we want to talk about some of those things today.
Absolutely. So the first part is to figure out what kind of a business you want to create, right? There's a lot of different models. I mean, we see dealers all over the country, and every dealer has its own unique model. But there are some very specific buckets of models. One of them is an equity model. An equity model is one where you're reinvesting and you're creating something that is big, that will create lasting wealth for generations, and then another one is cash flow. And I know that cash is king in this business, but cash flow is one where we just want to get to the point where all of our overhead is taken care of, and then we can start to do things with the money that's coming in. So those are the two big ones.
Yeah, and there are other things there to think about, but it's been my experience over the years is that business plans or business models kind of fall into one of those two categories. We're either focused on building equity and wealth, and we're okay with building and reinvesting and growing the business, and we're going to defer the day that we enjoy positive cash flow coming back. So that's very growth minded, takes a lot of capital, but if that's the strategy, then we can certainly do that. The other scenario would be a cash flow focused business model where we're focused on maybe taking a limited amount of cash, we're going to invest that in the business, and we want to grow that and enjoy some cash return. So generally speaking, they're going to fall into one of those two focuses.
Absolutely. And then the one piece that we typically surprise a lot of dealers about is we talk about lifestyle as well. What do you want? What do you want your life to look like outside of your dealership? And so that's like a really, really great question. How many of you guys actually think about what do you want that lifestyle to look like? So there's a lot of different things to consider when you're thinking about your lifestyle before you start creating that business plan. What do you want to be able to, what does you want your typical day in 5-10 years to look like? So one of them is that net worth. That's the equity model. So that you're creating something that you're going to be able to put your kids and your grandkids and possibly your great grandkids through college. That you're going to create something that is much bigger than just you and your dealership. It's something that it creates. So it's about building wealth. Another one is the spendable cash. That we see cash is king and buy here, pay here, but being able to have that extra cash flow in after you've got everything taken care of, is it something that you want to be able to, I want to buy the car, I want to go buy the boat, I want to be able to do some of these different, what is it that you want to do? Because, so yes, spendable cash. And then the other
is it's going to be that home life or travel. And so this is where Michelle and I have kind of discovered that there's a real need in the industry, probably not just in our industry, but we don't just talk about, as she said, those straight lines. We try to bring a real holistic approach to our coaching. So if we're working with you to create a business and in writing a business plan like we're going to talk about today, we just feel like it's important for us to understand where you want to go with your business, what your personal life should look like, because we feel like when you can incorporate that and you can achieve in your business what you want to achieve, and it also reconciles with what you want from your personal life, we feel like that's a more sustainable business plan, that you'll be able to actually commit to that and follow through on it. It makes that plan more sustainable. And that's why we like to bring a holistic outlook with all those things. And by the way, when we say, wealth or net worth versus spendable cash, of course you can achieve both. It's just that the focus is typically early on is in kind of one area or the other.
Absolutely. So when we are working with new clients, one of the first things that we take them through is an exercise called vivid visioning. Have any of you guys ever heard of Cameron Harold?
We don't see very many hands on that. Yeah.
I would write down the name. He's really revolutionary in how you create your business. What was it that he said? Just throw them out.
Oh, throw out mission statements.
We get together when you're working in big companies and you have a retreat and you come up with this mission statement that's got all the very expensive words, and it's like we've got this so dialed in, we're going to do all of these things, and there's like 6 or 7 bullet points, and then that translates to your team really has no idea what these large expensive words mean or exactly what it is that you're trying to create. They just see we're about diversity, or we're about inclusion, or we're about and it really doesn't translate for them as well. The Vivid Vision the program it's our hybrid of the Vivid Vision is that we take the dealers through in 3 years, in 5 years. What do you want your day to look like? Just your typical day at home, at work, at play, all of the things. When you step into your dealership, what do you see? What kind of conversations are you hearing? What do you smell? All of the things, all of the senses. And so when you're creating a vivid vision about what it is that you want to be able to tap into all of the senses and get really, really crystal clear about what it is that you want. And I'm just going to do a side note on this too. One of the things that we've encouraged our dealers to do in part of this vivid visioning is to take a few questions down a couple of different tracks. One is the customer track. And the customer track is if you were to run into one of your brand new customers, someone that you signed that same day, and you ran into the grocery store on their way home from the dealership, what would that conversation sound like? Would they even know who you are? Would they be excited? What would that conversation sound like? What kind of questions would you ask them? What kind of responses would they have? And then the next one is, let's jump forward 3 to 4. Now it's about a 4-year note. 4 years into your note, and they just signed the title. So the title was turned over to them today, and you run into the grocery store. How does that conversation sound? Because all of us know that most of our customers are going to have hiccups, they're going to have the things. And so how do you want that conversation to go? So that's a really important thing when you're thinking about how I want to build this. What do I really want my business to look like in 3 to 5 years? The next vein is your team. So when you think about the day one, when you're doing your orientation and you're taking them around and you're doing the training and you're talking to that new hire, what does that conversation sound like? And then let's take that forward 10 years or whatever until they're ready to leave or they're retiring. What does that conversation look like? So getting really crystal clear about that. And then the third one is when you step into your home and greet your partner, how do you want that to look in 5 years from now? Because, we hear when we talk to dealers, we frequently, one of the days when we're doing a discovery, we ask for their partner to be there as well, because it's interesting how you hear different things from both of them. And, and it's really, we try very hard because it's doing a business like this, it bleeds into everything. So having that conversation with the partner as well about what do you want for this business? What do you want for your partner? And what do you want for your home life or for taking care of grandkids, being able to attend the soccer games, being able to go and do the things. So this is like a very, very holistic way of creating a vivid vision. So,
and it's all part of making your business more sustainable, we feel like. Again, it goes back to this thing. If we help you create a vivid vision for your future, and that is your personal life and your professional life, and you can look at that and you can say, this is where I want to be in 3 years. And this is a challenging exercise. You have to find quiet time and be able to go, because this is you. We can coach you and guide you, but this is about you going and saying, this is what I want my life to look like. And by the way, you're the captain of the ship. You can go there. And buy here, pay here affords us wonderful opportunities in that way. Cash flow, equity. What do you want to do? You can create damn near anything you want in the buy here, pay here space. We've got a lot of great fortune in that regard. So in order for us to make good day-to-day decisions, we got to be crystal clear about where we want to end up. Because now all the decisions we make day in and day out run through that filter, and we're better able to make decisions that are consistent with that vision. So again, it's just taking your, what we used to call a mission statement, putting that thing on steroids and just looking at what's this thing look like in 3 years. And now we've got a chance to make day-to-day decisions that are going to take us there.
and I like what Jim had to say. It's really is a filter. When you're really, really clear about how you want to be known in all of these things, every time you're faced with a difficult situation, you have something to be able to measure with. You have something that it's like, okay, will this help us accomplish this end goal? If it's nebulous, it's like, it doesn't matter either way, then, choose whatever you want to, but just make sure that you're really clear about those things. And for us, especially how you want to be known by your customer is.
Yeah, we're just trying to help people create
Yeah.
success, and that includes some personal life, right?
Okay.
So to the extent we can bring those together. And I want to pause just for 1 minute, Michelle, to make sure folks know, if you came in here hoping to hear straight lines, a numbers type of a business plan presentation, then I'd ask you just reach out to us after the event. We can schedule a one-on-one webinar, and we can take you through that part. We work with cash flow modeling and business planning with dealers in that way all the time. We just thought if we only had a few minutes with you, we wanted to start here and make sure we introduce you to this concept. And then whatever we do going forward is all kind of be able to run through that lens.
Okay, so we've got like all of the squiggly lines, the feel goods part about your business plan. So we're going to kind of, we're going to shift a little bit into the actual creating of the business. And so one of the things that we encourage the dealers to look at it is that, are you fitting your life into your business goals, or your business goals into your life, for one thing? I mean, what is it that's important to you right now? And let me hop onto the next one, because I think that this kind of takes us a little bit further into this question. Are you thinking about the cost of cars or the cost of college?
Or both.
Or both. It depends on whether or not you've got like 4 teenagers at the time.
Right.
Days on the lot or days out of the building? And that, let me just ask, we have done so many surveys. Those of you guys who are part of any of the Facebook groups that we're in, we're always throwing some kind of survey out there. And we did one this last summer about how many hours a dealer typically spends in their dealership.
Yeah. It was a high percentage of the dealers are spending 40 hours plus in their dealership.
And when we're talking 40 plus, we're talking 50, 60 hours, because they're 6 days a week.
I want to say that number was around 60% of dealers reported that they were spending those kind of hours in the dealership. And again, if we enjoy it, that's one thing. If we're tied to it, that maybe is a different thing.
Absolutely. And then the value of your portfolio, or the value of your business, or the value of your health too, because stress creates problems, right? And so having a good plan and knowing what you want will help mitigate a lot of those stress points as well. So stress.
Right. So we think it's possible to address both in these things. We can cover both, but we just have to be mindful of both if we're going to arrive there. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's talk about what we're building for the business ourselves. And how many of you guys have heard of Donald Miller?
Donald Miller does story branding. He's marketing specialist.
I would suggest everybody write that down, because if you're having some problems with your marketing of your business, what he encourages people to do is out of the box marketing. And it's about creating a story where your customer is the hero, not you. Okay, so Donald Miller and its story branding is the big one. Well, he does. He has a Business Made Simple website. You can join. Really great information. Business Made Simple. It's like $500 a year, and there's all sorts of content that comes out on there on negotiating, on marketing, on sales, on all the different things. And it's not car specific, because there's a lot of things that you do in it's a business, and so there are certain things that are just you can fit it into different types of business. He uses the analogy of building an airplane, and so what each part component works, what the purpose is. We figure we're in the car business, so we're going to use the car as what it is that you're building, and so we're going to start with the chassis.
Yeah, so we think about building a car. We start with the chassis, basically the frame and underbody. Then we feel like if this car that we're building is representative of your business, then again, going back to sustainability, something's really going to last and hold up for the long haul. We feel like we would start with founding principles. Like, what are the core principles of you and your business? Is your business plan, is the business we build going to reflect your core values and your core principles? So we would recommend founding principles would be part of that. Culture, which we know starts from the top. We just really can't be effective in implementing culture unless it comes from the top. And then sustained success can come from that. So that's what we would kind of choose as the chassis. And then for the engine, we feel like that's your team, your people. They're really the engine of your business. And so we have to think about that part. Michelle, you want to?
And then the transmission is your policies and procedures. And I know like I said, I married into Buy Here, Pay Here. So this meeting new dealers all over the place it's been very eye-opening to me. When we go and we do a discovery visit, one of the first things that we ask about, do you have policies, procedures? And so sometimes we'll get this thing that's like a page long. It's like, well, this is our underwriting policy procedure. And then we'll take a look at it and we'll go, okay, so you have your one person that does your collections, let's say, everyone has like their key person, key man, right?
Right.
The key man. What happens if the key man doesn't show up for work tomorrow?
Whole different session.
Whole different
we'll cover that
session.
later.
Yeah. So policies and procedures, really important that we get very clear, and in some cases pretty granular about how to do policies and procedures. I just really encourage using video as much as possible, written word as well. And it makes it a lot easier for people to be able to reference those things. So
now if we think about what we're building, we got this chassis, we got to choose an engine and transmission. So how we would choose that is going to depend on, again, where we want to go. That was the theme of this session, is where do you want to go with your business? Because if this gentleman wants to build a business or wants to be a renegade and go chart new territory and do things differently than anybody's ever done in the business, probably going to build a pickup truck or something for off-roading, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to build your business in a way that I don't want to reinvent the wheel, I just want to chart a course that's well mapped, and I want to follow that, and I want to kind of maybe build a cruising sedan that's just going to kind of go where it's going to go, right? We're going to pretty much stay on the highway. And so that's kind of the premise of what we're bringing here. Somebody else might build a hot rod because we're going to go fast and we're going to set the world on fire, right? So there's all different strategies that we can bring to Buy Here, Pay Here. And by the way, lots of those models can work. It's just that we have to decide what direction we're going with our business. And so that's kind of the idea of what kind of car are we building? And now we can make better decisions about what we choose for the components.
And all of them are right. I mean, what is it that you're looking to act? Jim would say, tortoise and the hare, don't go too fast. But Jim has been working with different clients for decades. And I remember him telling me a story when he was a brand new coach. He went in to go see one of the dealers that he had been working with. Was it through a 20 group or just regular coaching?
Somebody I met, yeah.
And they're walking along and he says, listen, you're selling 24 cars a month right now, and I can help you sell 50. And he looks at him and he said,
Jim, I sell 24 cars a month and I don't want to sell 25.
Why?
It was a good lesson for me as a young consultant. Because why? Cash flow focused. Business was working for him exactly the way they wanted. They were enjoying some positive cash from the business. He did not want to sell 25 cars. So that was a right business model for him, might not be what you would choose, but it certainly was a lesson for me that day. And I think it's about having discipline. In this case, it was very much focused on cash flow. And so that's kind of was the
Yeah.
premise there.
And one of the other things too that we ask as we go through this kind of exercise, people will say, I want to be this. And then it's like, okay, why? Why do you want to be this? Well, because I want to be the best. Why do you want to be the best? Because I want to be the biggest. Why do you want to be the biggest? What will it bring you? What will it do for you? So it's really getting it's kind of going deep. It's like, why? Because if you can get to the core of the why, then you actually can be a lot more successful about how you're going to map this all out. Is why?
Right.
What is it that I want? Is it just, I want the pat on the back? Well, you can get a pat on the back and be considered very successful in any of these models. And it doesn't have to be something where you've got 15 dealerships. They can all be very successful.
Yeah, and part of how this theme came about for our session is that in working with startups, we meet people who are new to the business, contemplating getting in the business or just starting a buy here, pay here dealership. And they will ask me all the questions that you might ask a coach. Jim, where should I price my cars? Where should I set my interest rate, right? What's a good term of loan?
What's the first thing you ask them?
I just end up asking them questions. You ask me a question, I will come back with, well, in order for me to really answer that question for you, we need to kind of understand how you want to be known in your community. Like you have to help me understand first, how do you want to be known? What kind of business are we building? And so this helps me to advise better when I know what we're setting out to build.
As
and
well
I can
as
advise.
what kind of car do you want? What kind of car are you building as well? Because those are good questions.
And it gets me out of having to give a tough answer too. No, it's about
best
being able
coaches
to,
ask
yeah, it's
questions.
about just being able to give the right answer for that situation, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so we need to really clarify about what it is that you want to build. What is your vision? And this is not something. It's funny when we sit down and we talk to new dealers and we'll say, Vivid Vision, we want you to do this exercise. We'll say, take a week, plan a day. This is not something that you can go home and just write it out. This is something that really is it's helpful for you to spend some time thinking about it and really just ingesting, and then talk to your partner as well about these things. Yeah, so if you know where you're going to go, you're going to be able to create that plan. You're going to be able to build the car, and you're going to be able to get to those goals that you want for your future. And it kind of takes us back to this.
Mark Burkholder. If we want to be in that scenario, if we're looking to die at our death, that's one thing. There were a few hands. But if we're looking to avoid that scenario, then now we know we've got a couple of ways we want to go. And so if we want to position ourselves to be able to create a business that's going to have value, that's going to be marketable, then that's going to affect our strategy. It's going to affect our decisions day to day in terms of what kind of business that we're looking to build. So, I see the quote
from Tommy.
From one of our Facebook listeners today. So, so the idea is that if we've made the decision that we don't want to die at our desk, that we want to build a business that is going to be sustainable and that can function well without me standing in the building, then that obviously takes a little different strategy. That's going to affect kind of what we would choose to do and how we would position ourselves in this business. We had a conversation last evening about how in this business, we have some different components than some businesses would have. I know we got a multipreneur up here, you've involved in other businesses. One of the things we have in Buy Here, Pay Here is we have a lot of balls to keep in the air. We got inventory management, we got a sales department, we got a collections department, we got underwriting to think about in there, we got capitalization. There's just a whole lot of pieces to our business. So if we're an owner, we really have to recognize that, it's going to be challenging to get this thing through that. If we're brand new, that first 18 months is really critical. Some will say the first 6 months is critical, and it can be, but certainly if we're going to build this thing to get it to a place where it's healthy and sustainable, then there's just a lot of moving parts. And so in order for us to make good choices about which levers to turn, we feel like it's helpful to have a vision, and that helps us have a better decision making.
So, we go back to the question, how are you going to exit? It all really does boil down to, where do you want to go? What do you want to be able to do with this business? And remember, we're not going to die at our desk. And so that leaves us with two other choices. I don't know if Jim has, we have two podcasts. One that's like the 60 minutes. We get into some of the more meaty stuff. And then the morning show, which
That's
is kind of
coffee talk.
That's coffee talk, where there's lots of laughter. Jim had the opportunity, if you get on YouTube, you'll be able to access, actually they're on the syndicated stations as well. There was a 3-part series podcast that was about blue sky. And why buy here, pay here dealers don't experience blue sky. Now, those of you who, if you don't know what blue sky is typically when you have a corporation, a company, that you can sell it for multiples based on all the different factors. Well, in buy here, pay here, we typically liquidate.
Traditionally, we haven't seen a lot of equity or blue sky, I should say,
Mhm.
blue sky. And so I might also define blue sky as intangible value. It's easy enough for you to understand if you're buy here, pay here. You got value in your inventory, you got value in your receivables and maybe real estate. So liquidating that, we understand that. But why in other businesses, they're able to enjoy some multiple of their profit or their cash flow. And we just haven't traditionally enjoyed much of that in buy here, pay here. And it's been a source of frustration for me watching that over the years. And I think, why not? So on the podcast series that she's talking about, we had Ken Shilson and we had Brent Carmichael from NCM join. And I know we went through that. And I asked the question, why can't we do that? And I asked them at the end, I said, if our dealers had this, and this, wouldn't they have some blue sky value? Like, wouldn't they be marketable? And I call it translatable. You have a business that would translate to somebody else. If you had a good owner's manual for the business, you would buy my business, you would follow that owner's manual, and you could enjoy similar success. But we traditionally haven't had much of that in buy here, pay here. So as a result, we haven't enjoyed much blue sky. So those of us who are contemplating getting buy here, pay here, we need to recognize that's something that we can position ourselves for, but there are some very specific things we're going to need to do in order to make that business have some value that can be passed to someone else. And that can be true whether it's a son-in-law or whether it's, a competing dealer or whoever might be the buyer for that business. When we go in with that understanding, then we can position ourselves. And not only that whole die at the desk scenario, if you do own the business and something unexpected happens, you've now got a business that your family or others could sustain. They could keep that business in motion because we positioned ourselves in that way. So this has just been I'm like a bulldog on that thing. Like, I got to help us create more value.
Absolutely. And part of that value comes from, one, knowing what your foundations are, who you want to be, because I think that's probably one of the harder things for people to translate when they move into the business and they buy the business. It's like, this is who we are, this is how we're known in the community, and this is our playbook. This is what every decision gets taken through this filter. This is why we're successful. This is why our business is working in this community. And then the second thing on that is really, really get clear about your policies and procedures. Get crystal clear. That key man type thing is like, if you as the dealer dropped off, would your team be able to run the things? If your your lead collector drops off, would they be able to do the things? And it's been very, very interesting as we've talked to different dealers and you ask them that and they look panicked immediately. Absolutely panicked.
Some of them look relieved. Like, if I pass away tomorrow, that means somebody else has got to deal with that recon pipeline, right?
But that means you died at your desk.
Yeah,
We're going
and we meet some dealers whose spouses would love to see them work 80 hours a week instead of 40. So, that happens too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're working when you're writing a business plan, so how can you make your business more marketable? Making your business more valuable as it's more marketable, and facilitate the lifestyle that you want, the vision that you want for yourself and for your family and for your team. So get really crystal clear about especially that vivid vision, and then the other pieces, which are the straight lines. And there's lots of people out there that can help you create all those straight lines, but it's really, really essential for you to be able to have a very strong business, a translatable business, is get really, really clear about what kind of business, what you want, what you're building. and go from there.
And people that are familiar with this industry that we're in, and they recognize the value of those cash flows that we create, those streams of payments that we enjoy in Buy Here, Pay Here. When you recognize those values, then now we begin to think, and I often ask dealers, I will say, look, if you were coming to me and going to buy my business, what would be the first 3 things you would look at? You don't have to give me your answer here, but just each of you think about that. If you were buying my business, what would be the first things you would look at in my operation to make a judgment whether my business had any translatable value, if it was worth acquiring? To buy the real estate, easy. To buy the contracts at some discount, pretty straightforward, right? Inventory, that's easy. But now, what about, is that all we get? Why don't we get any? We've created this customer base. Value. So this is the part that I'm saying, that we have an opportunity to create that. We just have to recognize going in that there's work to be done to create that. And as part of what we do in coaching and implementation is help people do a lot of that. And so that's what we want to have for all of our dealers out there, is to be able to create that. And again, it goes back to this vision. The whole vivid vision concept we think is really important. And it's kind of a nebulous thing. But if we really just think about it, at its core, a vivid vision is just about getting clear about what you want the future to look like. Where does my business fit into that future? You know, it's because it's not just my business life. It's where does my personal life, where's it going to go? And now we're going to have a better chance to go there. And of course, we're going to have to write playbooks and policies and procedures manuals, and all that work is to be done. It's not just going to magically happen. But we're certainly, when we have that clarity about where we want to go, then we think you're going to write a more successful and more sustainable business plan.
Absolutely.
Questions? Right. Looks like we've wrapped it up there. Any questions today? Mark?
Yeah, when they ask a high school senior what they want to do for the rest of his life, make decisions, they don't typically know, and they pick something and they go down a path. Do you think it's wise to review your mission or vision statement and make adjustments?
Yes.
A lot of us probably just got into business and started a business, and like our mission is to survive.
Right.
Our vision is to make some money, and now we need to, you put a few years in, or as the senior becomes a college freshman, or maybe gets out a little older, they start honing in where they're wanting to go. Is that a wise move for us as business owners?
I would say yes. My answer would be this. We just actually had a scenario like this come up where we had a succession plan. We had a dealer who was selling to the son-in-law, because 2 daughters and neither one of them had a real interest in the business, but the son-in-law was going to step in and potentially acquire the business. And so we asked the son-in-law, what do you want this thing to look like? Because those visions need to align at some level. So maybe as the dealer principal, you write the vision plan or the vision for your business, and then you involve them at some point and say, okay, what's your vision? Here's mine. How does yours align with mine? Do we need to make any adjustments there? Because again, we need to be successful on both ends. Whatever that succession looks like, we need whoever's taking that on, in order for the outcome to be favorable for both of you, we need to be on the same page there. So that would be my thought. And of course, many of us, jokingly, we said earlier, a young person, you don't know, what you want to do. Heck, I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. But it's like, no, it's the nature of that whole scenario is like, how do we create a vision and have something to fit for the successor in this case? And I think the answer is the vision will be updated, right? You'll have to make updates periodically as you get new information and new clarity about, what the future looks like.
It's a lot of things can happen too along that route. A lot of things can happen.
Other questions? Nothing. Go ahead, sure. Mm-hmm.
The big separations between the really successful dealers and the. Uh-huh.
I would say to answer that, I probably have to first we'd have to decide a definition of successful. So if we say a dealer's been successful and grown a large operation and is healthy and stable, maybe that might be my definition of success. And I would say among the common denominators in those things where we see success is there's a lot of discipline. There's obviously strong management in there. And in my belief, it's pretty hard to manage a team successfully when the leader doesn't have that clear vision. If I have a sense of purpose and vision, then I can better manage the team. So I would just say it's been kind of a common denominator for me I talk a lot in sports analogies. You can take that outside of buy here, pay here and go look at successful sports franchises. What makes them successful? Well, we can talk about coaching and we can talk about different things, but in reality, I would simply say that it's really going to hinge on management, but it's really leadership. It's does somebody have the direction and leadership, and can I get the team to buy into my vision of where we're going? Because I know I can't do it alone. So if I were to pick one, that's probably what I would see. And that's not just a buy here, pay here thing. That's just general business, right?
I'd like to add a little bit to that, one of the things that I've observed is some of the most successful are clear about, who they want to be in the community, how they want to run their business, but they're also always learning. It's like coming to things like this. We typically see there's the very successful dealers are the ones that are at events like this. They're in the front row, they're asking the questions, they're learning something new, because there's so many different ways of skinning a cat. And so, and you're still going to get the same result, but that one way may work better for you. And sometimes it's a good idea to get some fresh perspective, and you can approach it that way.
Another definition of success for me would be longevity. We had a dealer celebrate their 30th anniversary on our morning show back in June. And if I were to point to anything with them and some of the dealers that I know have decades of experience in this business, they're very customer centric. They're very customer forward, customer focused. It's about people.
Helpful, kind.
And so and especially in the smaller communities, right? If we're very community focused and we build our businesses based on people, I forget the famous quotes from Zig Ziglar and some of those, but if we start with people, right, then the success and the money tends to come. So I would say sustainability long-term, that's really where I would recommend that we focus. Other questions? Mark, you're allowed 3 more. Anybody else? Yeah, of course. Anything? We can let you guys move on to your next session. We appreciate your attention. And by all means, like I said, come find me. If you'd like to do a virtual session one day and go through the numbers part of it, we're happy to help with that. Thank you so much.